Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unexpected Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we are back with one of our previous blogging clients, Megan, to talk all about our back pocket blogger and the experience with it. So, before we jump into everything, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me, Jesse. My name is Megan Blanton, and I am a wedding, elopement, and boudoir photographer based out of Fort Collins, Colorado. And I had the immense joy of working with Inkpot Creative on a lot of my blogging needs, and they've just been fantastic. So I'm really excited to be here today.
It was so much fun working throughout your stuff and, especially being in Colorado and like us having lived there for a little bit. Every time we looked at it, I was like, it's almost like reminiscing and I'm like, I miss this and like I need to go back. But no, that's awesome and we loved working with you. So thinking back to kind of pre joining in, what was kind of going on? Have you been blogging before? Had you been trying to but not really doing it? What was kind of the vibe with your blog before?
Before I started working with Inkpot, blogging was one of those things where I felt I'm a competent writer. I had taken an SEO course way back when I started my business, and I thought, no problem, I can do this. And I found that the more that I did it, the less I enjoyed it because it became sort of this pressure like, oh my gosh, so much of my business depends on these blog posts actually ranking, actually getting traffic to them. And the pressure of doing all of the SEO research and trying to word things in a way that was both engaging and also targeting my key audience was just not something that I wanted to spend my energy on. And so I started to just not do that. And I saw my inquiries take a hit, and it's like, okay, if I really want to keep building this business, I actually need to invest in the resources and the time to make a blog happen because I can put out crappy blog posts and it's not going to do anyone any favors. But if I wanted to actually grow and become something more, I knew it was going to take either concentrated effort on my part, where I would have to
Mhm.
actually, give a shit about it, or I would have to find someone that who would care about it for me.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's that balance of there's so many things going on and there's so many things that you're doing in your business and like sometimes it's just there's certain things that just get pushed to the side or you're like I can do this, but
Yeah,
like I don't love doing it and like I know it may help in like this area, this area, but like it gets sometimes it gets to the point where you're like I feel like I'm pulling teeth trying to do this and it just keeps getting pushed down the ladder of importance and what you want to do and it's hard to overcome that even if you're like I know it's going to help but there's no part of me that
absolutely.
wants to do this right now and so it just disappears.
Absolutely. And some of the best advice I had ever gotten was from an educator and photographer, Maddie May, if you've ever heard of her, from Adventure Instead. And she was the one who really talked about if there's an area of your business that does not bring you joy or is not something that you want to put energy into, it's
Mhm.
100% okay to outsource that. And I think a lot of solo entrepreneurs find themselves feeling like, oh, I'm a strong, independent business owner. I'm going to do all of my own marketing, all of my own web design, all of my own editing. It's like, you don't have to. You can.
Mhm.
And more power to you if you have the energy and the bandwidth and the passion to do all of those different things. But it's 100% okay to say, okay, my passion is not in blogging, but it's something that is important to my business. It's okay if I go ahead and outsource this to someone else.
Yeah, I think it's that balance of, not wanting to feel like you're disconnected from your business or there's a whole bunch of things going on that you're not like a part of. And I think a good balance that like we found is even when we outsource stuff to other people is being like, okay, I have a base understanding of like how to do this and like what it is, but I don't have the time and energy to put into it what it should be and like what it needs. And so that's where I'm going to go and, hire someone out and outsource this. And like, we have people take our brand photos. We have people write our copy. Like there's certain things that we're like, no, we're just like, it's just not going to happen or it's not going to be as good as it should be if it's us. But it is that hard kind of line of sometimes being like, should I keep trying to like grit my teeth and do this? Or should I just be like, okay, it's going to be more beneficial for me and my business if I hand this off to someone who like specializes in this or can take this off of my plate in a way that like I'm good.
Exactly. Yeah. And at some point, recognizing that line between what is, an energy vampire versus like something that gives you joy and energy in your business, it becomes so important because giving your energy to things that could be done better or more efficiently by outsourcing, it becomes a detriment to your business if you just keep pouring time and energy into that instead of
Hmm.
focusing your energy where you do excel and where you can, what's the word, get the most bang for your buck out of your time, sort of thing.
Yeah, right. Like sometimes I feel like you're going through and it's when you're trying to do all of these things that you don't love to do, even when things come in that you love to do, you're like, that's great, but I have like this to do and this to do and this, and it kind of almost like lowers the joy and like enjoyment of things that you really thrive on doing and like you really want to do. Whereas if we can just pull a couple things off the plate, like you said, or kind of that like energy vampire, just like sucking all of your will to do anything away. Like if we can pull those few things off, I feel like everything in your business starts to like feel better and like you enjoy actually like getting up and doing these things and being with the clients and providing them the experience and giving them all the energy that they deserve to get as well.
Absolutely. And it's when you've got too many things on your plate, you start to not do them all as well as you could.
Hmm.
My favorite Parks and Rec quote, don't half-ass two things, whole ass one thing. you know?
Yep.
So don't spread yourself too thin trying to do all of these 100 things that are needed to run a business. Like find the things that you can focus on and niche down on and then say, all right, I love and trust Jesse. Jesse's going to write my blog post for me and I
Hmm.
can focus my energy elsewhere. So,
Yeah, yeah, there's always things that need to be done, but there's not always things that need to be done by you, and I feel like that's the
exactly.
kind of line you have to toe and have to figure out, and sometimes it takes a little bit to get there, but like once you get there you're like, okay, I feel so much better now. Like this is great. I know. So throughout the course, we wrote 12 blog posts for you. After kind of having them up, what are kind of your thoughts and feelings on it? Things that you've seen, ways that you've been able to use them, anything like that since they've been published?
They've been fantastic, honestly. I've seen a lot of traffic going to them. And something that y'all had kind of told me about when we started blogging together that didn't really sink in for me until later is the fact that you will not see overnight traffic. Like it's not
Hmm.
something where you publish a blog post and then immediately you're going to get all of these inquiries and hits. Something that really does take time for traffic to build up. And so even though we're a few months past when we did our last blog post, I'm still seeing those numbers climb every day and it's starting to be exponential. Like
Hmm.
the growth is coming faster and faster, even though I haven't done anything different to those blog posts, right? And the posts that we had put out, I really loved that there were a lot of good recommendations in the back pocket blogger portal that she had that gave suggestions on, okay, if you don't know what to blog about, here's some suggestions based on your industry and that sort of thing,
Hmm.
which gave me a lot of good starting points. I think one of the ones I send out the most is you had helped write a prep guide for couples and engagement sessions.
Hmm.
And that's probably the one that I send out with every single one of my engagement sessions that I do. As soon as I book them, I send that specific post out and say, all right, here is your how to guide on just how to be successful and set yourself up to have a really great session. And in turn, I've actually seen my clients pass that same link on to other people who may or may not be booking with me, but that link and that article is still getting passed on to more people.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's that kind of two sides to the same coin of like traffic increase and getting people in and like getting new eyes on stuff and pulling in direct search stuff that you're not trying to go out and engage with people on social media or put like do all of this other stuff to kind of constantly get people into your atmosphere. But then also once people do book with you, having resources that then answer all the questions that they're probably like the odds that people were going to ask you questions about that anyway is probably
Yes.
high. So now you're answering it before they're even asking it. You're giving them a good client experience, but you're also saving your own time and your own energy. And now it's not something that you're like, let me go find that email to like copy and paste all of this stuff in, or feel like you're typing it up every single time. You're just like, here's the link, send, good, and like everything's done. But it is that hard sometimes thing to recognize that it isn't going to be an overnight thing. And I know that's something that like a lot of people have. It's that one like barrier of like getting over it, because you're like, okay, I can go on Instagram and I can, you know, publish, like have a post up there and it might get, 50, 60 likes on the first day. That's great. But then how many people go back to that post after it's shown up on their feed once? Like, people aren't necessarily going to be seeing that over and over again. And even new people are going to have to like stalk your Instagram, which I don't know how often people do that anymore, and like go back through a bunch of stuff. But with the blog posts, like, you can have a post that you posted a year ago and it's still getting you traffic now. And it's kind of that snowball effect that once you give it the time and have that, faith that it's going to go, and are writing things that, people are searching for. I know for you too, we wrote a ton of content around Colorado in, Fort Collins.
Yeah.
So having that super specific, like, I have a whole bunch of resources on this one specific thing, that's also signaling to Google that like, hey, I'm an expert in this. Here's everything that I have. People can go down the rabbit hole of all the information about this area and everything that you would need. So, all of those things kind of build upon each other and grow over time. It's just sometimes it's a little difficult to be like, okay, let's give it time and see where it goes. But it does, you see that effect over time, and it's always a fun thing to look at and be like, all right, I like what I'm seeing here.
Definitely. It's you got to be willing to trust the process, and what I do like, you mentioned Instagram and social media. What I do like is that once you have some of this evergreen content on your blog, you can then pull out of that and make Instagram posts from it. So at one point, I think pretty early on, you had written for me a post on going through the different parts of your wedding photography contract. And so there's all these different pieces, the model release, the fees and payments, all these different clauses that are in there. And that's one big blog post that I know is hitting a whole bunch of keywords when people Google search, do photographers own my photos, and things like that. But from that, I can pull out various paragraphs and make that into social media post itself. So maybe I have a specific post about model releases, and then I can reference back to the blog post and say, for more information about your photography contract, go check out this blog post that we did. And so being able to recycle content from a blog post becomes hugely beneficial. And then if you're someone who needs that instant gratification, you can still get that. Let the blog post snowball and build up traction over time, but pull out snippets, throw it on Instagram, and get the little dopamine hit of someone liking your post.
100%. Using it, like, this is a great piece of long form content to reuse, whether it's on your social media. Like, we've done it before, of having like little carousel posts or single posts, making it into reels, and just like talking about the thing that you're having, or whatever it might be, having it in email newsletters. All of those things give you those different audiences to hit, because odds are, where people are seeing that, like, that you have different audiences that are on Instagram, that might be searching from Google, that might be on TikTok or any other social platform. So like, you're not just giving the same people the same information over and over and over and feeling like you're repeating yourself, but it is that easy piece of content that you can just repurpose. And then realistically, you can repurpose it like over and over. Like your Instagram post, if you posted it a year ago, you can probably talk about that same content again and write a new post about it, and your following is going to look different, and new people are going to see it and relate to it. So it's one of the things that it never really dies. You always have that there that you can kind of lean back on, and it helps maybe make some of the other parts of your business. I know a ton of people don't love marketing. Like, that's normally the one thing that people are like, I didn't become a photographer. Like, I'm a photographer, I'm not a social media person. So obviously this is something that can be a little difficult. But yeah, having it there to repurpose and reuse across anything can help save you so much like time and mental energy too.
Absolutely.
Was there any part of the process that you really loved, or anything that kind of surprised you throughout everything?
I think what I really loved was the back and forth and the feedback process, because I think for a lot of folks that are for the first time, working with a copywriter or a ghostwriter, there's this sense of losing control over the narrative that's being told, and a feeling of losing control over, like, oh, is that really my voice? Is that how I would really talk? Am I fake for, handing this over to someone else to write it for me? But what I really liked about the process of working with Inkpot was there was a good feedback loop. And whenever there was a draft that came back and I was like, ooh, that's not my tone, or ooh, maybe I would word this differently. It was really easy to give that feedback and then
Hmm.
get an updated copy and see that reflected in there very quickly. And I think y'all took a lot of care in listening to feedback that I gave, as well as took a lot of care to get to know what my writing style and speaking style is in the first place, even from the outset. So I think the first blog post that I got the draft back, I was immediately just blown away. It's like, holy crap, this sounds so natural. It doesn't sound robotic. It sounds I can see where all of the keywords are and where all the SEO things are, but it didn't
Hmm.
feel like it was force fed into a post kind of thing. So right off the bat, I felt really good about that. And when there were times where it just wasn't what I was expecting it to be, it was so easy to work with you to get it updated and fixed. And there was never a moment where I was like, oh man, I never felt like I made the wrong choice in
Hmm.
outsourcing. It always felt like, yes, this was the right way to go, and I didn't feel like I lost control of what I was trying to put out there.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we are really aiming to like look at and focus on is making sure that you don't feel disconnected from anything that's getting pulled out. And like one so that you personally feel good about it, but two also so that when people see your, Instagram post or they're reading your website copy and then they go to your blog, we want to make sure it feels cohesive and like everything feels like
Mhm.
it's coming from the same person. And so, yeah, like having anything that like you've like we ask for things that you've written that like feel like they're in your voice or those that feedback, like that is the big reason why we put that in there, is because we want to make sure that if there's certain words that you wouldn't use or phrases that you wouldn't use, or you'd actually say it this way versus this way, or you want something more emotionally charged or something that's more kind of like educationally focused, like all of those little things, everyone's going to have their own approach to it, their own kind of feel to it. And, it's super important for us to be able to get to know each person and, look at that. And if there are things that want to be changed, like changing them and making sure that they feel good. We never want something to go out that someone's like, wow, I hate that. Like we want the feedback. We want the like harsh being like, okay, can we do this instead? Like 100% we want, everything to feel really good. So, that's something that we try to focus on a lot and love being able to go back and forth and collaborate and like get different pieces of information from you. And, whether it's how it's actually written or like the content in it, like all of those things are super important. And like you said, can help make you feel a little connected to it still and not like it's just something being done, out by itself, but also not having to have everything on your plate and just be like, okay, I just have to leave feedback and I'm good. Everything else is taken care of.
Definitely. And for folks that are considering hiring someone to do blogs for them or any sort of copywriting for them, around feedback, I would say that my biggest recommendation is to not be afraid to give feedback, because I'm certainly a recovering people pleaser, and the idea of telling someone it's like, "Oh, I didn't like how you wrote that. Can you please change it?" That's like something that was very scary to me when I first started working with Inkpot, because I was like, "Oh no, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings and say that their writing is bad." And people should remember, like myself included, is it's like this is a business partnership when you're working with a blog writer, and you're actually doing something good by giving very direct feedback without
Hmm.
beating around the bush. Like, don't be a dick, but like still be very forthcoming with your feedback, because the sooner you can give that feedback, the faster the writer can learn what your
Hmm.
style is. Like, my hesitation when I started out was just, it's like, oh, well, is this really something I should say? Maybe they'll figure it out. It's like, no, no one's going to figure it out if you don't tell them what you're feeling and what your expectations are. So don't, you know, to the audience, don't be afraid to let folks know what your feedback is, because that's how everyone grows. And I was never under the impression that you took it personally when I gave feedback.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that folks should remember, because I know as creatives and as entrepreneurs, sometimes especially early on in careers, when you first get that critique or get that feedback that something isn't the way a client wanted it to be, it feels very personal
Mhm.
because that's your business, that's your work, you poured a lot of effort into it. And so for me, I was remembering that feeling of like, oh, I don't want to ever make someone feel the way I felt. And really that was just a growth opportunity on all fronts of like, yes, I have learned to handle critiques because it's not a personal thing. It's just the client has a vision and we need to work together to get to that point. So, you know, be forthcoming with feedback. The sooner the better because then things just improve so much faster.
Exactly. Yeah. It is hard to separate that, like, I don't want you to feel like I am shitting on you or like I'm
Yes.
being mean, but also there's the balance of like, if I don't say anything, nothing is going to change because there's the, assumption that everything is how it's supposed to be. So I think for us, we're huge on whether it's design or blogging or anything that we do, like, you're not going to hurt our feelings with, giving feedback and being like, hey, can we try this instead or do it this instead? But like you said, no one's going to know unless you give that feedback, and it's such an important part of it. And I think too, it helps everyone in the long run because, for us, we have a better understanding of what someone might want, but then for you too, you don't feel like every single time you get something back you're like, oh, I want to change this and this and that, and like it feels like you're doing more and more every single time because you're like, well, can it just be like this? And like, it absolutely can be, and like the answer is yes, as long as we have that communication and talk about it. So I think that's a great piece of advice, like, regardless of what you're doing, being open and honest with stuff is just going to help everybody get on the same page. And I feel like that's the most important thing, is like, once everybody's on the same page, everything just flows so much better, and like, you feel better about it, we feel better about what we're giving, all of that stuff. So I think that's a definitely something to keep in mind, even though it can be hard to like say the things sometimes, especially if you are like, I don't want to be mean, like, it's not mean, I promise. So I have one final question for you. Now that we have all of these blogs out, how confident do you feel with your blogs and kind of blogging in general?
I feel like the content I have now, I feel very confident in what it's doing and in the traffic that it's bringing to my site. And I feel very confident in the content that it holds. Like these, again, I call them evergreen content pieces because these are things that I can keep coming back to. They're never going to go out of style. Maybe I'll update like something on my venue guide, but for the
Mhm.
most part, these are pieces that I can keep using over and over again, and they're just going to continue to become stronger pieces over time as more traffic goes to them. I do think I need to probably continue doing more blogging. Definitely one of those things where it's like, well, when things quiet down and it's go time again, I'll be able to come back and I don't want to stay stagnant,
Mhm.
Like we put out 12 really excellent pieces that have been very very helpful to my business, and I just want to keep building on that and keep growing with it because, those pieces might be evergreen, but the world is not. Things are always going to be changing, so there's always going to be new topics and new things to talk about. So yeah, I'm confident in what's currently out there and excited for the opportunity to keep building on it.
I love that. Yeah, it's definitely having those posts out there, like you said, even if you do update them in the future, like, it is something that's there and is going to continue to grow, and having extra things that you can throw in, or new stuff that comes up, but then keeping that momentum kind of going is only going to help everything in the future. The more you blog, the more you see the results, the more things start to pick up, the more things can start to rank and all of those things. So it is, like we were saying earlier, it is that like snowball effect of, you give it time and you put it out there and you kind of see the effects roll. But we love that you are, you love the posts that are out, and it's some great content that you're able to use across everything. If people want to maybe check out some of your blog posts or anything else that you do in your business, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so I've got a really excellent website with a lot of great blog posts at meganblanton.com. And on Instagram, you can find me at Megan Blanton Photography.
Perfect. Well, we will put those links in the description below. Thank you again so much for coming on today, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.